Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning to all of you from Montreal, Canada. I would like to welcome you to this webinar that IISD is hosting in partnership with Evidencia on consumer demand for sustainable products in Asia, success and challenges. My name is Cristina Larrea, and I'm the lead of the Sustainability Standards work stream at the International Institute for Sustainable Development. It is my pleasure to co-moderate this webinar with Bridget Rangan from Evidencia, who will share with us a few words in a minute. I'm facilitating the discussion with our 8 guest speakers and you all on this promising topic. So why we are here today to discuss sustainable consumption trends in Asia, in particularly in the coffee, cocoa, tea, and palm oil sectors. Let me provide you with a bit of context. We commonly understand sustainable consumption as the consumption of goods or services that have been produced or transformed through its life cycle with limited use of natural resources while protecting the environment. The production also supports social well-being of farmers, workers, and communities and improves their livelihoods. Sustainable consumption is very much interrelated to our farming systems. More importantly, it is one of the main drivers for motivating farmers to transition to more sustainable forms of production and maintain them over time. So the buying decisions of buyers, traders, public agencies, and all of us here can make a difference. IISD has been working in the sustainable production and consumption space since 12-15 years now through our work on sustainability standards. We have 2 main areas of work, research and advisory services. Our research activities include studying production and consumption trends of commodities compliant to sustainability standards, benchmarking schemes, and examining the interface between certification and public policy. Our advisory services are mainly aimed at government officials and ministries to support making informed decisions related to sustainability standards. Our recent research that my colleague will present reveals that Asia is a critical region for increasing sustainable consumption. Countries in Asia have high rates of population growth. They also lead global consumption of agricultural crops such as palm oil, tea, and cotton. A systemic change for sustainable consumption patterns requires Asia to lead this process. Could you imagine if the tea produced in India compliant to the trustee scheme, or the palm oil produced in Malaysia compliant with the RSPO are sold across retailers, supermarkets, and restaurants through Asia at larger scale? How many opportunities this will open to local farmers? Let's jump to the topic now. I would like to pass on the word to Vidya. She will introduce us to our guest speakers and we will continue discussing. Please, Vidya.
Great. Thank you so much, Christina, and a very warm welcome to all of you in today's session. As Christina said, I am Vidya Rangan. I'm a senior manager at ICL and also lead on the Evidencia partnership. A quick word about Evidencia and what it is. ICL is one of the 3 founding members of Evidencia, which is a knowledge partnership dedicated to publicly sharing information about the impacts of sustainability systems and standards. Evidencia was launched in 2019 and has had a growing presence in terms of visitors to the Evidencia website, but also increased engagement from different groups of audiences across countries, all interested to understand the impacts of sustainability work. If we move on to the next slide, please. You all can learn more about Evidencia by logging on to the URL www.evidencia.eco, as you see on the screen here. And we're very proud that Evidencia is also a growing partnership of organizations all committed to understanding and working in the space of research, insight, and sharing that insight to actually inform practice. We're very proud today to be partnering with IISD and specifically Christina's team working on the State of Sustainability initiatives for this webinar, which we think is on a topic which is less discussed in the entire sustainability arena. So with that introduction to Evidencia, we're happy to kick off today's webinar proceedings. Before I bring in the lineup of extremely experienced and talented speakers we have for today, we thought we'll kick off today's proceedings by checking the pulse in the room, in the virtual room, and having a quick poll to get a sense from all of you of what you think about the state of demand for sustainable products in Asia. I'm going to hand over to David now to run the first poll. The question's on your screen.
Yep, if everyone could please use the polling function. The question is, do you think sustainable consumption is increasing in Asia?
Okay, it's a good question to start a webinar with. Oh.
Well, thank God for those results, because it means a topic of discussion such as this is well timed today. So clearly, the vast majority of you think that sustainable consumption is increasing in Asia. Today's webinar is, of course, going to understand what we're learning from some of the great initiatives which have already been sort of operating in different countries that have led to some of this growth in sustainable consumption, but also what are some of the challenges, what are some of the obstacles that we really want to overcome if we want to take this consumption to the next level. So to kick us off on this discussion, I'm first going to invite Stephanie Bermudez, who is a policy analyst at IISD.
Perhaps, Vijay, can you introduce their speakers? It would be great.
Sure, I'm happy to introduce the whole set of speakers as well. So before I hand the floor to Stephanie, this is our speaker lineup. You can see all of the speakers on the screen. We will start off with Stephanie and then hand over to Nils here. Nils works with the Consumption and Production Unit at the United Nations Environmental Program and is closely associated with the One Planet Network, which does a lot of work globally on SDG 12, which, as many of you will know, looks at sustainable consumption and production. We'll then hear from Irfan Helmi and Teddy Somatri. Irfan is the co-founder of Anomaly Coffee Indonesia, and Teddy is also the co-founder of another such initiative, Habanero Indonesia Coffee. Both will be telling us a little bit about what they've been doing, what innovations they've been working on in the coffee sector in the Indonesian space, connecting farmers, to buyers. We'll then move on to the tea sector. We have with us Rajesh Bhuyan, who is the director of Trustee. Trustee is, of course, a standard that many of us working in the tea sector are well aware of. And I'm very proud to say Trustee has just entered ICL as an ICL community member. This is just news of the last 1 week. We'll then move on to palm oil. We have Philippa Walker, Philippa's program manager. No new face to many of us working in the palm space in Asia. She's going to be telling us a little bit about what WWF's research and insights into sustainable palm oil have been yielding. We'll then move over to Ganesh Kasekar. Ganesh is the South Asia representative for GOTS, which is the Global Organic Textile Standard, working for many decades in the organic textiles and cotton space. And finally, very happy to have with us today Win Bao Toa. Ms. Toa is the director for Vietnam Rural Industries Research and Development Institute that has been working across the board on this topic in Vietnam. The structure for today's session is as follows. We're first going to hear from Stephanie, who's going to be giving us a bit of an overview of the key insights coming from IISD's research on this topic, looking at both trends in sustainable production of key commodities and sustainable consumption. And we're then going to hear from each of our distinguished panelists who are going to bring with us their experience of working in the sector. What have they learned? Who do they work with? What do they think are the main challenges? We'll have that for half an hour, then take a small break and go on to the bit, which is about what do we do about this? Where do we go from here? What are our recommendations for the next 4 to 5 years of work in this space? So I hope you're going to stay with us for the entire session. We have a great lineup. And of course, as you hear the speakers, feel free to use the chat box, although we'll have a dedicated Q&A session right at the end as well to bring your questions and comments in. So with that, without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Stephanie to share the insights from IISD's research in this field. Stephanie, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Vidya, for the great introduction. So today I will present some findings on global consumption trends on certified products with a focus on Asia, building from the IISD series of commodity reports that we launched in 2019-2020 that you can find in IISD, SSI, and Evidencia websites, and also from the ITC report on the state of sustainable markets 2020, also on Evidencia site, and ongoing research on consumer preferences in emerging economies that we're doing at the IISD. So we can say that demand for agricultural products that comply with voluntary sustainability standards has increased globally, and the driving forces behind this growth include consumer preferences for healthy and sustainable products. Second is the implementation of risk management strategies by private companies that source commodities from developing countries. And this is motivated either by ensuring the volume of supply or the integrity of products sourced, or by mitigating reputational risks on environmental and social concerns on value chains. And third is regulatory frameworks and export promotion measures in both producing and consuming countries that establish sourcing conditions. And we have this kind of frameworks in palm oil and soybean, for instance. If we go to the next slide, we can see that there are some initial trends as part of the COVID-19 effect on global demand for certified products. And we have seen that global disposable incomes have decreased, and lockdown measures also implemented in many countries have restricted people's movements. So people and many households continue to reduce spending on non-essential products, and this can affect or this can include also standard compliant products or certified products that come at a higher cost. But on the other hand, there is a growing demand for more nutritious, healthier, and safer products that protect the animal, human welfare, and the environment. So the pandemic has created a kind of interest or need from people that would like to know where, how, and in which conditions their food has been produced. And as a result, many private actor sectors, buyers, traders, manufacturers are using standards, voluntary sustainability standards, to assure consumers and governments that their supply chains comply with these requirements, aiming to protect food quality, safety, human health, and environmental safeguarding. Let's go to the next slide, please. So these trends vary by geography and by commodity markets. In general, traditional markets in Europe and North America drive demand for standard compliant products. And this is the case for cocoa, coffee, cotton, and bananas. However, we see a potential to expand this consumption in developing countries and emerging economies, particularly in Asia, which happens to be the largest consumers of some of these commodities. Indeed, there is an initial consumption of standard compliant products in the region due to higher disposable incomes, health and food safety concerns, and a growing middle income population, as Christina mentioned. However, we have some challenges, and we will see some of these challenges in our 4 commodities of focus to see what is happening in Asia. So if we go to coffee, we can see that traditional markets still dominate consumption of certified coffee. However, this demand in traditional markets that we consider US or the Europe is not enough to balance to balance the existing oversupply of certified coffee in the market. So there is a huge potential to expand this consumption of sustainable coffee as domestic coffee consumption in the region is growing at a higher rate than other regions such as Europe and North America. So expanding coffee consumption in Asia could be very promising since 67 to 80% of coffee is produced by small scale farmers in these countries who are also big consumers of coffee, such as Vietnam or Indonesia or Thailand. In addition, some Asian countries, such as China, Indonesia, and Japan, are among the fastest growing markets for the coffee sector, showing accelerated development of roasting facilities or coffee shops serving high quality coffees with sustainability claims. So some initiatives are emerging, aiming to boost local consumption of sustainable coffee and expand the consumer base in the region. And we will see some examples happening with the coffee platform on Indonesia. But some challenges persist in the coffee market in Asia. Especially consumers in these markets are more price sensitive and tend to be less concerned about sustainability issues linked to the coffee sector. So as a result, they often prefer conventionally produced coffee, and that's why education and awareness is key in the region. So some campaigns should come from institutional actors, such as governments, NGOs, but also from coffee buyers and roasters selling in the region that still have room for to offer sustainably grown coffees. As we can go to the next slide, the situation for the tea sector is similar to the coffee one, since demand for standard compliant tea is concentrated in Europe and North America, driven by consumer preferences, especially for organic tea. And also by commitments from large manufacturers to source sustainably grown tea. So some of these buyers have made commitments to obtain all their tea from sustainable sources. However, demand is still lower than supply for standard compliant tea. And this is because the top tea producers are also the major consumers, such as China and India, and consumers there prefer to buy conventionally grown tea than sustainable options because conventional tea is generally cheaper. So addressing the price issue is crucial to expand a standard compliant tea market in Asia. In some cases, certified or sustainable tea doubles or triples the price of conventional options in the region. So the key is making sustainable tea affordable for local consumers, as well as cost-effective for producers to ensure market uptake. But there is a potential to expand sustainable consumption in the region, especially in China and India, which has more disposable incomes. In addition, and this is very interesting, some of these countries have developed their own sustainability schemes or sustainable initiatives. And this includes the Trusty Standard in India, which could further bolster domestic consumption of a standard compliant tea. That's for tea. If we go to the next slide, we can see that for palm oil, demand continues to grow globally, driven by public concerns about deforestation, land grabbing, biodiversity losses associated to palm oil operations. And also many traders and food and good manufacturers are adopting sustainable sourcing commitments and increasing their purchases for standard compliant oil to respond to increasing consumer preferences for healthy and environment-friendly ingredients. And this is driving food processors to switch to palm oil complying with schemes such as the RSPO, organic or GMO-free palm oil. There are some challenges in expanding sustainable consumption in Asia for palm oil, since the market is very fragmented in the region, and palm oil is critical in diets, as it is the most affordable vegetable oil for use in everyday cooking in the region. And these difficulties are especially pronounced in India and China, where consumers are less aware of the environmental impacts associated with palm oil production. However, there is a potential for increasing consumer consumption of palm oil, sustainable palm oil in the region. In China, for instance, there is public awareness of RSPO among consumers, and this awareness is rising. And also some Asian countries such as India or China as well, two of the biggest and fastest growing consumers of palm oil, have committed to raising their standard compliant palm oil sourcing from their total palm oil consumption by 2020 and 2021. And we also see some efforts to raise awareness on sustainability issues in the palm oil and increase local consumption. In India, for instance, with the establishment of the Sustainable Palm Oil Coalition for India, the ISPOC. So these initiatives and trends might boost additional standard compliant consumption of palm oil in the region in the coming years. And this is very needed, since estimates show that demand for standard compliant palm oil remains lower than supply. So Here, policy support is key. Major consuming and producing countries in the region can help promoting sustainable consumption locally. And also industry actors in the region can contribute too, since palm oil is not only used as a vegetable oil for cooking, but also is an ingredient in other food or pharmaceutical or cosmetic products. So transparency in the industry on which type of palm oil is being used in value chains and operations, as well as commitments in sustainable procurement is crucial. So next slide, please. For cotton, demand for certified cotton has increased in recent years, mainly driven by sourcing commitments from textile, clothing, and apparel brands seeking to respond to consumer preferences for more eco-friendly clothes. And indeed, consumption of products made with standard compliant cotton, particularly for organic cotton, rose globally. So we will see that this demand for cotton, organic cotton, will outpace supply in the coming years. But there is plenty of room for great uptake of standard compliant cotton in the region, where demand for more sustainable goods is forecast to rise among consumers. So raising awareness and targeting young population is crucial. Indeed, young consumers are making different lifestyle changes toward more sustainable clothing shopping in the region, and also retailers and brands can play a major role in promoting standard compliant cotton. So if we go to the next slide, please. We see there are some limiting factors to increase consumption of certified products in the region. And one of the limiting factors across the 4 commodities is the concentration of demand in traditional markets, while the large producing countries and emerging economies present a lower rate of consumption. There is also a focus of producing countries in Asia to export their certified products. So the market is driven mainly by export demand. And also we cannot forget the effects of the economy and reduce disposable incomes because of the pandemic that contributes to the price sensitivity issue. And finally, there is a lack of knowledge also on the socioeconomic and environmental pressing issues at the production level of many of these commodities. So in many cases, there is not a clear definition on what is considered sustainable. Also, we have some enabling factors in the region, and I'm going to finish here. So COVID-19 has changed consumer preferences, and we see that also young consumers in Asia are interested and willing to pay for sustainable products, particularly in coffee and in clothes, in cotton. And we also see some efforts on awareness and creation of sustainability initiatives and certification schemes adapted to local conditions, as well as policy initiatives, since governments are interested in promote sustainable consumption of food and goods in the region. Yeah, and I want to finish my presentation with some quick key points going forward to boost consumption of standard compliant products in the region. So key is education, especially when it comes to price sensitivity products such as coffee and tea. Also encouraging affordability of these standards through incentives to consumers. And there is also room for more ambitious sustainable sourcing commitments and transparency from the private sector. So also encourage local defined standards is important, so they can be more accessible to small scale farmers. And we should not forget about the issue of cost benefit for farmers engaging with certifications and the need for adaptability of these standards to local conditions. Thank you very much. So if you need more information, you can visit our website at IISD.org/SSI, and please contact us if you would like to receive more of this information on consumer preferences. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Stephanie. And
Yeah.
what a great whistle-stop tour of all the research and data that you have been pulling through from your efforts. And for many of us, I think working in the region and these sectors, a lot of your findings will resonate pretty strongly. But let's now move to hear from our panelists. I'm first going to invite Nils. Nils works, as I said earlier, for the Consumption and Production Unit at UNEP, working closely with the One Planet Network. And Nils is going to be doing two things. One is giving us a bit of a global overview on the importance of SDG 12 and framing the discussion a bit globally, and also sharing his thoughts on some of the findings that Stephanie has shared with us. Nils, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Vidya, and also Stephanie, for this very interesting presentation. I think there's a lot of commonality with also our own insights on sustainable consumption and production globally or in other regions, and it kind of aligns with what you've shared about the Asian context. Just a little bit on the background from my side. So as Vidya mentioned, I'm part of the One Planet Network, which is a network of over 600 partners from government, civil society, and also businesses working together to basically work on the implementation of Sustainable Development Goal 12 for responsible consumption and production. And the network is structured into 6 different programs, 3 sectoral ones on food systems, buildings and construction, and tourism as key sectors, and then cross-cutting programs on consumer information, sustainable public procurement, and also sustainable lifestyles and education. And we in the Consumer Information Program that I coordinate together with Consumers International and the Ministries of Environment in Indonesia and Germany, we are trying to support the provision of credible sustainability information on goods and services to encourage more sustainable consumption. And of course, voluntary sustainability standards are one of the key tools we use or advocate for in terms of enabling this more sustainable consumption through sustainability information. And then we also aim to develop more effective strategies to engage consumers in sustainability consumption. Right now, I think our priority is much more on strengthening the credibility of consumer information, because we know that unfortunately there are also a lot of misleading or confusing informations about the sustainability. A lot of companies are now picking up on this growing trend of consumer awareness about the need for sustainable consumption and the willingness of consumers to buy more sustainable products. But then some companies are just communicating without acting on it. So this is where we are focusing a lot of our attention to increase this credibility, and we have, for example, provided some guidance on how to do that, and working with a lot of our stakeholders to address this topic, which I think is also crucial in pushing for more sustainable consumption. Next slide, please. Just to give also one example for how we work in the program, and something relevant to the Asian context. So we had a couple of years ago, we started a project in Sri Lanka to promote sustainable consumption production through facilitating access to information. So here we worked with the National Cleaner Production Center in Sri Lanka, and we're aiming to improve the sustainability in the food and agriculture sector, which is really important for the country. Basically we had 3 kind of activities. First, also to do a survey and look at awareness of consumers basically on sustainable products and sustainable consumption and certifications, for example. And we found also what was mentioned here, that sometimes the awareness in some countries in Asia is not as high as, for example, in Europe or North America. So this is something that always needs to be kept in mind when we try to work with the certification schemes in those countries, that the local demand is still something that needs to be worked on. But of course, especially with, for example, in this project, we worked on 3 commodities: rice, tea, and dairy. And then a lot of the consumption also happens locally. So it's important to boost the awareness and encourage local consumers to also buy these certified products. And then, we work basically on setting up a certification scheme, starting with dairy, but it's now also being expanded to tea. And we also managed to connect to the Global Eco-Label Network, which is one of our partners in the program. And now, this new eco-label that was established in Sri Lanka is connecting an affiliate member and basically trying to comply with the ISO certification for type 1 eco-labels. And this is one of the most credible types of voluntary consumer information approaches that you can take. And so this was a good, successful example for us. But of course, there remains a lot to be done, because as you mentioned also in the presentation, Stephanie, the cost for certification can be quite challenging. And there's also a need to build capacity of especially small scale farmers to actually get certified, and then find also the consumer demand in the region. Next slide, please. yeah, here I just want to put like some general observations. And I think a lot of that was already reflected in the presentation from Stephanie, but basically the way we frame the situation right now in UNEP as well is basically we have these unsustainable patterns of consumption and production, and we see also the trends are all not looking very good. I mean, consumption is increasing, there's economic growth, population growth, so we know a lot of these things will continue to put pressures on the environment in terms of climate change, nature loss, and pollution. And it's really critical now that we find ways to, really transform our societies and make socioeconomic changes that are quite radical in some ways, I guess, to really, push this trend in the other direction. And then I guess globally, we also have very different situations. For example, in Asia now, we know that there's a lot of, still a lot of poverty in many countries, and there's a need for raising the levels of consumption. And then in Europe and North America, I guess we have the overconsumption in many situations. So it's kind of about balancing that, and this, I think, very important to keep this social equity and dimension in mind when we advocate for more sustainable consumption. And a big challenge that we also see for us in the program, for example, is that raising awareness and providing credible information is already quite challenging, but then also making sure that this information leads to changes in consumption behavior and lifestyles. I think that's even more difficult because there are so many different factors that impact decision making from individuals on a daily basis. Social norms, for example, play a crucial role that they take a long time to shift, I guess, in a different direction. Also price, that was already mentioned, and the economic situations of people. Then also one more point I wanted to make is that we also see digitalization as something that is really changing the space, I guess. For example, both in terms of how people make consumption choices. Now a lot of the consumption is happening online. That trend has also been accelerated by the COVID-19 pandemic. But then it's also a great opportunity in a way to, for example, for supply chains to get more insights on the data and share information more easily and get more insights on their impacts. And then, but also in terms of how, for example, consumers get information about the sustainability, it's again an opportunity, but also a challenge because there can also be like a lot of misleading information out there, and social media, for example, is a big influence, especially on younger consumers now that they don't really use the old traditional ways of getting informed about sustainability. So that's another challenge we identified. I think that's mainly it from my side. I don't know how I am for time, but I'm happy to also join further in the discussion later.
Great. Thank you so much for that, Nils. Bang on time. So that's a great set of introductory remarks. And I think your comments resonate very well with what Stephanie has already shared in terms of the state of the evidence, the state of the data, and the kind of canvas which we're looking at right now. So yes, we'll be very happy to bring you into the panel discussion once we hear from the others. Great. So with that background, both from Stephanie and those, sort of thought-provoking, I think, remarks from Nils, let's move into hearing from some of the pioneers and leaders who've been working in different countries across the Asian region, across sectors, trying to drive change. I'm very happy to first give the floor to Irfan and Teddy, both of whom work in the coffee sector in very interesting and innovative initiatives. So Irfan and Teddy, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for having us. So we have 2 slides actually. Could you please present it? Okay. So we are both from Indonesia. I'm putting my hat also as a chairman for a Sustainable Coffee Platform of Indonesia. I'm chairman for the supervisory board. So that is one of the initiatives that we will explain it later. So we will start about it's just to the point on the title. It's already obvious because we need more actions toward sustainable coffee in Indonesia. Why? So this whole slide will explain. First of all, if you see the numbers on the production growth, I think Indonesia, if not the most, is one of the fastest growing consumption growth in coffee per capita for coffee consumption. Yeah. So as you can see, I believe the number is around 7 to 8% per year, the increase. So if we compound the numbers for the last 10 years, and then we'll get the number of two-folds, yeah, more than two-folds even on the consumption growth per capita. So what happened? That's a consumption growth. So what happened in the upstream? Here is Pak Teddy, my friend in the association, will explain furthermore. But on the production growth, you'll see the number, it's just slightly increased. It's around 17% increase. So you can see a big gap. So what happened in the upstream? That's the interesting question. But before we go to the upstream topic, so what happened in the downstream? So Indonesia, it is consisting of more than 260 million of people. There is a lot of business models gaining more popularity. So it's not just cafe, it's bicycles with coffee sachet. It's motorcycles with manual brew on top of it. So, and also just the basic specialty coffee shops, yeah, and roasters and all. So we are consisting of different cultures. So the entry barrier for coffee business in Indonesia is practically considerably low. So the entry barrier, so the investment is quite considerably low. So that's why more and more people are jumping, doing business in a downstream segment. So what happened to the upstream? So we would need Pak Teddy's knowledge to explain furthermore what happened in upstream. But before that, hence, there is a big challenge. What if we are shortage of coffee? That's a big challenge, right? So that's why in 2015 established Scopi, a multi-stakeholder platform, a sustainable coffee platform of Indonesia, which is an association, and the farmers' welfare in social, economical, and also environmental in their upstream area, it becomes the core attention of whole of our activities. So without further ado, please, Pak Teddy, with your vast knowledge on upstream, I think you're better to discuss the upstream side. The floor is yours, Pak Teddy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Pak Irfan, to explain a bit on the coffee in Indonesia, especially on the downstream. I try to explain just a little bit on the upstream. You can see now, in Indonesia, the coffee production, based on the ownership of the land of the status, it means Indonesia is like, in here is like stand on plantation. The government on this is like 1.86%, and then the private sector, maybe some in Indonesia is like me, but I don't have any big land, just only a small plant. It's like 2.8%, and then this is in Indonesia maybe is the big challenge for us as the Scopi, to help the farmers. You can see in the production, just only 17%. It means we have to motivate the farmers. When because before I'm just we call it is like a worker. I'm working for the consultant before. It's easier to see. It's easier to us to just only jumping into the production. When I jump to the industry and the real sector, is very hard. People cannot, the farmer cannot, produce the same. They don't have any SOP, the standard for to that one, and then they don't know how to cultivate and everything. That's why on the production, the growth of production, that's why it's very, very small compared to the consumption. Okay, maybe like in Indonesia also, the production mostly is still, the Robusta is still bigger then Arabica. Yeah, this is the province or the area. This is Aceh. Yeah, mostly is Arabica. North Sumatra also the Arabica. I mean the South Sumatra is the Robusta. It's big one, and Lampung also, and Java. Yeah, land of the Java is coming from the west to the east. It's mostly the Arabica one, and then we have Flores and also the Toraja, and also maybe in Wamena also in Papua. Yeah. Okay, maybe or in terms of what the Scopi doing, and we train the farmer, and we also, because this is the members, not only the farmers, yeah, including the people, I mean, love or concern about the coffee. We have like 190 master trainer, and but now it is only active, maybe just 75 active, and the farmers like around 20,000, and including the female is like 7,000 in the 13 province. Maybe next to the next slide, please.
Teddy
Okay.
and Irfan, another 1 minute, please, if you could
Okay.
wrap up. Thank you.
Maybe just I want to share about a little bit on the practice on the upstream. That's why the Scopi engage the master trainer, yeah, to National Sustainable Coffee Program to make the production good, and also to more collaboration and support to and strengthen the organization, and also the impact. We measure impact to the farmers. Maybe for the next Irfan maybe can help for the outcome, maybe the impact, because the output is already maybe we can see everybody on the slide.
Yeah, I think it's already explained clearly, Pak Teddy, and just all the way to the impact. So eventually we will build the economic resilience in Indonesian coffee, and how can the farmers gaining more and more economy and welfare without ruining all their environmental. And one of the, as a closing remark, maybe Indonesia is one of the most promising to expand coffee production without extensify our coffee plantation, because per hectare now the productivity is 0.8 tons per hectare, around that numbers. Yeah. But to just increase, we don't need to extensify, actually just intensify to increase, like to up to 0.75 or 1.2 tons per hectare. So this one is a promising development. So we are at a final thought. Yeah, I think what we need is a more and more green investment towards the upstream. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Great. Thank you both so much for sharing both your experiences and that really useful overview of the opportunities in the Indonesian coffee sector. Let's now move over to tea, and I'm very happy to invite Rajesh Bhuyan from Trustee. Rajesh, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Vidya. Hi, good day. It's my pleasure to speak to you today on sustainability in Indian tea. We are the second most populous country in the world, witnessing rapid urbanization with a burgeoning middle class, rising demand for commodities, stress on the environment, adverse impacts of climate change, all part and parcel of the complexities of one of the fastest growing economies in the world. A large commercial tea plantation in India dates back to the first half of the 19th century. But the significant development has been the rise of the contribution of the smallholder farmers in the last 2 decades, who now contribute half of the tea crop. We also have to keep in mind that Indian tea manufacturing is predominantly a labor-intensive process, employing multitudes of workers, more than half of whom are women. A survey conducted by the Tea Board of India revealed that tea penetrates about 88% of the Indian households, and consumer awareness and expectations are also on the rise, with high penetration, low-cost internet access available all across the country. It is therefore evident that sustainability practices are crucial for the Indian tea supply chain. Way back in the year 2013, the stakeholders, supported by like-minded civil society organizations, took cognizance of this and came together to create an innovative sustainability program called Trusty. The Trusty program takes a holistic approach to sustainability, focusing equally on the three key pillars of environment, safety, and livelihoods, along with regulatory compliances that deliver the due comp and benefits to the workforce at a safe workplace. That's important for us. Given the growth spurt in the smallholder farmer output, it's incumbent upon us also to provide them with the tools to sustain their farms for generations to come. Now let's talk about some of the unique features and innovations of our program. It is specifically tailored today to the economic and social conditions of India, with a special section devoted only to the smallholder farmers. We provide free of cost training and handholding support by trained resources, ensuring 100% compliance with identified zero tolerance criteria. Innovation in training by initiatives like e-learning modules and the multilingual animated videos for smallholder farmers, focusing on the business case for adoption of the program. Then we have a multi-stakeholder management model of the program, comprising representation of all the tea industry stakeholders. Mandatory food safety, which is unique to our program, mandatory food safety and traceability requirements. And coupled with the pilot launch of a proprietary Trace Tea application, we aim to provide a safe cup of tea to the Indian consumer. We ensure that farming is in harmony with the surrounding community and the environment. Large-scale adoption of IT-based solutions to improve our program delivery. One recent example is the remote assessment system through Trustee's online portal, backed up by our own cloud-based secure data storage. So these initiatives have paved the way for easy adoption of the program, and we have actually witnessed a rapid scale up with the support of the Indian tea fraternity, growers, producers, buyers, auction houses, and industry associations. So as of exit 2020, 55% of the tea produced in India was Trustee verified, with more than 75,000 smallholder farmers and 600,000 workers as a part of the affiliated units. Therefore, we have a significant impact on the ground, expanding the sustainability footprint far and wide across India. But having come so far, what is our pathway to the future? Firstly, hitherto, the Trustee program has been a part of the wholesale trade. But now plans are in final stage for launching the Trustee seal on the consumer pack to connect to the consumers directly. This would also come with a consumer awareness campaign on sustainability. Then we are looking now to increasingly delivering value beyond certification through partnerships with focus on key issues like female empowerment and prevention of harassment at the workplace, smallholder farmers, value creation, and climate resilience. We also feel that now is the time to take a fresh look at emerging approaches to sustainability. Our community membership of ISEAL is one such crucial step in seeking collaboration to chart the course for the future. And we will look at seeking opportunities to explore at offering our unique solutions to other countries in their sustainability journey. So far that has been what the Trustee journey has been in a nutshell. And thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Rajesh. So interesting, and I think valuable to hear your perspectives on the journey over the last 15 years. And I really look to hearing your inputs in the next section on recommendations and how we can overcome some of the challenges and obstacles. I'm very happy now to welcome Philippa. Philippa, as introduced, works with WWF Singapore, and to all of us who know her, is a complete palm oil expert and guru. And her team has been busy publishing report after report about the state of sustainable palm oil consumption in Asia. So, Philippa, all yours.
Hi, Vidya, and thanks so much for having us on the panel today. I think at WWF, we really value the relationship with IISD and Evidencia in kind of sharing research and learnings on how we can move forward sustainable palm oil. So I guess I get to talk about one of the more controversial commodities, palm oil, often in the media and not a very good way. But here at WWF, we have committed ourselves to promoting the uptake of sustainable palm oil in the region. And I just want to say thanks to Stephanie again for presenting the overview of the research you've done into the industry. And again, that does echo a lot of the findings that we're seeing here at WWF. So I thought I'll just give an overview of, maybe we can stop sharing that screen so everyone can see each other, or have a bit of a break from the screen. But I thought I'd give an overview of the Asia Sustainable Palm Oil Links initiative that we're running at WWF, which is a kind of 5-year program aiming to remove deforestation from palm oil supply chains and increase the sustainable production and consumption of RSPO, or Roundtable for Sustainable Palm Oil certified palm oil, within Asia specifically. So this project's being implemented across the 2 largest producing and consuming countries, so Malaysia, Indonesia, China and India, and also within Singapore, which is a trade and finance hub for the region. What we're trying to do is take a whole value chain approach to drive sustainable production through promoting sustainable trade, consumption, and leading through to generating demand for greater production, because we understand the need to balance those, as I'm sure all of us do within the commodity trade. From the consumption perspective, which I think is what we're here to kind of talk about today, the project has quite bold aims to increase the uptake of RSPO, CSPO by 50% year on year in both India and China. And we also have kind of uptake targets for Indonesia and Singapore as well, of how we can drive greater awareness and uptake along within those markets. So the demand strategy kind of has 3 main pillars. The first of that is focusing on engagement with key buyers within the region and supporting them to either make or improve their sustainability commitments. We do that through direct engagement, providing tools and resources to these buyer groups, as well as forming industry platforms to aggregate demand. I know Stephanie mentioned we have the India Sustainable Palm Oil Coalition, which is now a group of 28 members in India. We also have the China Sustainable Palm Oil Alliance, which is 15 members strong. SASPO in Singapore, which has got 16 members, and the Indonesia Business Council for Sustainable Development, which is covering a whole lot of commodity groups, many of those who are represented tonight. But we work in partnership with these coalitions to kind of drive uptake of sustainable palm oil. In Indonesia, a sustainable procurement guide was just published last month, and stay tuned for one for China and India coming out shortly. As I said, we're kind of churning out the publications at the moment as a part of this program. So you'll probably get sick of WWF very soon. So in addition to business engagement, we're also running consumer campaigns. So we've been quite active in China, again, in partnership with RSPO, and we'll be soon to launch a campaign in India for the same. So we work with schools, we work mass market with influencers to promote awareness around deforestation-free commodities. And we found what we're trying to do is to address some of the concerns around product-specific boycotts, which palm oil has been a victim to in the past, by introducing the concept of deforestation-free commodities, looking at forest risk commodities in general, and then deep diving under palm. Because WWF's position is that with palm oil as the most productive vegetable crop, we need to promote its sustainable production as opposed to switching to substitutes, which may bring more negative effects. So just to push on, as a last point, we're working with governments as well in kind of developing policy recommendations of how we can drive further uptake within these key markets as well. So in terms of evidence, in terms of research, we have been quite busy, as Vidya mentioned. Last week, we just released 2 reports on palm oil within Asia. So the first is we looked at uptake levels of RSPO, CSPO within 5 key Asian markets, which take up 48% of market share. So again, China, India, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Singapore. Within that research, we looked at the key segments, the key application sectors who are driving consumption. As expected, cooking oil is taking up around 45% of consumption, but we're seeing an increased trend towards bioenergy use of palm, as well as processed food, and the oleochemical sector is well represented at around 20% within the region. But the report breaks that down per country, and you can see some quite nuanced differences between each country. For example, India, the huge portion is used in cooking oil and fat, followed by processed food with very little bioenergy. So what the report does is identifies the key buyers and traders within each market, as well as I mentioned before, the key segments. And what we've also tried to do is model the uptake levels of sustainable palm oil across those markets so that we can see, in a sense, where we're coming from. So this is one of our first studies where we can come up with kind of quite reliable estimates of the level of consumption of RSPO, CSPO in each market. As expected across Asia, it's still quite low, ranging between 2 and 10%, but we hope to see that move over the coming years. And the report also has a roadmap for how sustainable consumption can be lifted within Asia. So our second report that we released was around promoting supply chain transparency. So what we did is we mapped trade flows of palm oil produced in key priority landscapes for WWF in both Sabah and Indonesia, and looked at who the key stakeholders are along that supply chain. So mapping the palm oil through to the mills, through to the ports, and then buyers within key nations. And so what that does is help us to promote shared responsibility along the supply chain by knowing who is consuming this palm oil and from which landscapes. It opens a dialogue within all of those key actors, including governments and supply chain actors themselves, the finance industry, to say, guys, we're all involved in these landscapes, and we're all responsible for the protection of species and habitats within these landscapes. So that will be a key engagement tool from both the landscape perspective as well as our Asia teams as they identify the key buyers that are linked to those landscapes, and we can discuss sustainable trade perspectives from there. So my last one is that we are 7 days away from launching our 6th iteration of the Palm Oil Buyers Scorecard. So those familiar with that will know that we rank companies based on their commitments and actions to promote sustainable palm oil. What's new with this version of the Palm Oil Buyers Scorecard is that we've made a deliberate effort to include more Asian companies. So we have 46 Asian companies, we have 6 from India, and we're actually trying to make a deliberate effort to increase transparency of those companies who are doing really well and those companies that could be doing more to improve their uptake of sustainable palm oil. So if that's okay, I'll put those links in the chat, and please feel free to jump on, and happy to answer any questions on those. So thanks again for having me here.
Great. Thanks so much, Philippa. And yes, a lot of very interesting material, a lot of insights coming through from WWF's work in the palm space. And I think the point raised about transparency and traceability, I think, is a really good one, and potentially something we can explore for other sectors as well. We have 2 more speakers whom I'm going to invite sort of very quickly to share their thoughts. Ganesh, the floor is yours. Ganesh is going to be talking to us about the experience of GOTS, which is the Global Organic Textile Standard. Ganesh. Ganesh, you're muted.
Yeah, thanks Vidya for the introduction and the opportunity from the IISD on this platform to talk something about the Global Organic Textile Standards. A big hello to all the participants on this event. Can we go the slide further? Yeah. So as the name says, the GOTS, it's the Global Organic Textile Standards. And the standards vision is very much clear that we want the organic textile to be a day-to-day, life partner in our day-to-day life, and which will enhance the people's lives and the environment as such. Next slide, please. When we talk of GOTS, let's please understand that it is the world's preferred voluntary sustainability standard, and almost more than 10,400 facilities or the garments or the textile industries active in the world are currently having this sustainability standard as their, as the preferred sustainability standard. The standard is also recognized by various international organizations, like you can see over here, by the USDA, that is from the US, IFOM, the International Trade Center, Greenpeace, the zero discharge of hazardous chemicals, and a few others. Yeah, next slide, please. It started quite a few years back in 2002, and we have our 4 founding organization members, namely the IVN from Germany, the Soil Association from England, the Organic Trade Association from USA, and the Japanese Organic Cotton Association. Basically, when we talk of GOTS as a standard, it is a processing standard, and a textile industry as such, where we using the fantastic garments, fashion garments and all, the standards is been implemented from the first processing standard, that is the ginning, where we take out the cotton from the cotton seed, separated from the cotton balls, and down the line to the complete supply chain, it comes to the final retailing stage as well. But yes, as a raw material to be considered for the standard, most of it is, say, 80% of the share is controlled by cotton, and the GOTS standard will ask for a raw material which is certified as organic by various organizations or the bodies in the world, and the fiber which is being covered under the IFOM standard is considered as the raw material to manufacture any sustainable product which is certified as GOTS. Can we have the next slide, please? Yes, the numbers over here are enough to tell you how strongly this standard is being recommended and followed on the global platform. In spite of the pandemic, last year we had almost 35% of the growth in terms of our certified entities on the global platform. And as of now, on globally, we are having close to 10,400 certified facilities, which includes the ginning, the spinning, weaving, the wet processing, the garmenting, trading, and all other supply chain partners who are involved under the GOTS certification program. And coming back to why this standard is very important from the Asian perspective, because if you see in these numbers, India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh, these 4 countries are part of top 10 countries who are having the maximum number of certified entities as per the global organic textile standard. In addition to that, I would also just like to inform you that India is the largest supplier of organic cotton in the world market. India is having a share of almost 52% in the world market. Can we go ahead, please? Yes, what does the standard talks of? The standard is based on a very 3 important pillars, which are the social, environmental, and ecological environmental parameters. And during our during the entire process of analysis, doing the analysis of the certified entities, we ensure that all these parameters which are based on social, environmental, and the ethical parameters are being practiced throughout the year vigorously. Can we have the next slide? Yes, the social criteria are based on the United Nations human rights, the ILO conventions, and the OECD guidelines. And likewise, that's the reason why we take upon the social and the environmental criteria very strictly. Can we have the next slide? The whole beauty of this GOTS program is basically it is a completely traceability system. Likewise, I said we take the raw material, the farming raw material as organic cotton as the raw material source. A TC, a transaction certificate is issued, which is a proof that whatever raw material is being sourced for the processing is organic. And likewise, each and every facility which is a part of the supply chain need to have a scope certificate with them, which is a proof that yes, it is working as per the strict standard laid down by the GOTS standard. And while doing each and every business transaction between the one facility to the another, we issue a transaction certificate, which is a proof that the material which is being transported to the another facilities or up to the end consumer is manufactured as per the GOTS or the organic standards. Next slide, please. After completely following all these vigorous steps, we ensure that there is a logo which is being put which is visible on the garment. This logo contains, because we don't do the certifications on our own, we are having our approved certifying agencies. There are almost 16 certifying bodies active in the moment globally who are doing this assessment, And once they assess this, the entire supply chain, a logo is put on the garment, which is a proof that yes, this particular garment is sustainable. In addition, not only the process, but also all the chemicals and raw material, chemicals and dyes which we use in manufacturing and processing of these textile garments also need to follow the stringent regulations, and they also need to pass through the GOTS standard. Only then these particular dyes and chemicals can be used in processing of the GOTS approved products. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, so lastly, 4 minutes is definitely not enough to cover all the criteria of GOTS, but yes, it's a very good tool to do the risk assessment of the industry. The credibility, there is the efficiency, and the production is improved. There are a lot of innovations and differentiation methods are being followed as per the GOTS standard. And yes, last but not least, we need to have a sustainable market development. So as I said, next slide, please. As I said earlier before the start of my presentation, that yes, our goal is that we should have a fashion is something which is very much attracted to all the human life, and we ensure that whatever fashion garments are reaching to the consumers by and large should be sustainable and safe. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Ganesh, and totally appreciate 4 minutes is never enough, but thank you for sharing GOTS' experience to date. And last but certainly not least, I'm very happy to welcome Ms. Tua. Ms. Tua is the Director for Vietnam Rural Industries and Development Institute and is going to share with us their experience of sustainable consumption in Vietnam. Ms. Tua, the floor is yours.
Good evening from Vietnam. So it's my honor to share with you some perspective from the EcoFair project. So I'm the director of VIRI, and it is a local NGO of Vietnam, and I'm also the director of the EcoFair project. So the project promotion of supply and demand of eco-fair agricultural food processing in Vietnam were funded under the Switch Asia program. So the lead partner is VIRI, and we have a co-partners at CCS, VNCPC, it is a Vietnam Cleaner Production Center, and Fuji Life, a company from Finland. So the EcoFair project was born with a mission of changing the behavior of individual and organization in order to exert the most positive measure on environmental change. We, the project developers, together with our partners, intend to inspire the value of environmental sustainability through the implementation of project activities, such as capacity building, awareness raising, building support network, and encouraging the development of government policy that support this aim. The expected results as in the diagram, but we can see two main figures. 1,000 companies are trained online and 500,000 people are reached with awareness raising course on changing the consumption habit for sustainable future. So the project time is 2020 and 2023. As many other people in the world, we have been facing with the troubling time of the COVID-19. Anyhow, since most of the activities mainly designed online, so we're still able to carry out the activities. So how to change the consumption habits for a sustainable future? This course paint a clearer picture of impacts our consumption habits have on the environment. Thereafter, suggesting practical way we consumers can follow to reduce our negative effects, such as effective use of resource, cutting down on waste, or recognizing sustainable label and products. Next slide, please. So after 1 year of implementing the course, we could reach more than 400,000 people in Vietnam. So there are some interesting figures. 55% of learners are aged from 18 to 25. 21% of learners are from 26 to 30. So you can see that almost 80% of learners are under 30 years old. 33% of learners are from Ho Chi Minh City and 20% from Hanoi, and the remaining are from other cities in Vietnam. 58% of learners are female and 42% are male. So some of the best practice that bring to the course to consumer in Vietnam include, first, the course is designed with the pedagogy from Fuji Life, Finland, in which the content must be very useful and practical for learners. But it must be also very interesting and practical and easy to follow for learners. So the contents are divided into cards So when the people are following the course, it's like they are playing game. Secondly, is the nationwide digital campaign that target those who are living in Vietnam, especially interested in the topic. Frequent, reliable, practical, and appealing contents on the EcoFair Facebook page, compelling marketing message with a clear set of benefits for learners, promotion support from relevant organizations and clubs. And then we have a support from press release and mass media that have a wide coverage in Vietnam. So I hope to share with you some of the inside data from the EcoFair project with the aim to promote sustainable consumption. We hope to collaborate with you in the future to expand the network to spread this notable value in Vietnam and Asia. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Tao. Really interesting course sort of idea, as well as the sort of results and demographics that you're getting. And I think the power of the youth really coming through, in your presentation and insights. Great. We've had a very rich set of contributions from our speakers, but I also know we want to bring the audience in. So I know all of you have been patiently listening. We did want to go to our speakers for recommendations, but we're going to, so now I'm going to hand over to colleagues from IISD to help take some questions from the audience. So this is your chance to please come in with your questions. We have a last poll as well. So I've not forgotten about the second poll, but Christina suggests let's take some questions. Over to you, and then we can do the poll and close.
Excellent. I would like to just highlight a very few elements that each of you have, showcased in these presentations, which is very important for before going to the Q&A. First of all, there are common elements that are supporting moving sustainable consumption in Asia. I would say raise awareness of buyers and consumers, education programs, as Mrs. Tao just provides some information, engagement with buyers and actors, actually engagement, as Filippa was saying, and supporting transparency and traceability through the products and the actions of different actors in the supply chain. So those elements are very common across the initiatives that we have heard, and were supporting to increase sustainable consumption in Asia in that direction. So before jumping into the Q&A, let's do the poll. David, can you pull out the questions? Because indeed, in the first poll, we learned that sustainable consumption is increasing in the region. We have experienced that particular trend with the expertise of our experts. And then we have two questions to ask the audience before we go to Q&A. Which commodity has the most potential for growth in sustainable consumption in Asia? For the ones that we have examining today: coffee, cotton, palm oil, IT. You can choose one single option. Which commodity has the most potential for growth in sustainable consumption in Asia? Tell us what you think. And the second poll: who needs to drive growth in sustainable consumption in Asia? We have experienced different initiatives. Who do you think needs to have the driving force to support sustainable consumption in Asia? End consumers, governments, private sector actors, or development organizations? Just give 30 seconds.
Just to say, the responses to the first poll question do not undermine any of the great contributions we've had today from speakers across all of the sectors.
Okay. Are we getting responses?
Yeah, we've got about 56% of people voted.
Okay. Do you have the results? Okay, so we have, the audience thinks it's quite shared. Palm oil is going to be the commodity that's going to boost more sustainable consumption in the region, followed by cotton and tea, the same percentage, and coffee. But basically, all the audience considers that the four commodities will increase in sustainable consumption, which is a very good sign, with palm oil leading the way. And who needs to drive growth in sustainable consumption in Asia? Very good results. Private sector actors, 50% of the audience consider they should be the driving force, followed by end consumers, governments, and development organizations, only 4% of the audience. So it's a clear message that we get for the audience: private sector buyers, followed by end consumers, and then government. So it's private sector and end consumers who is expected to lead sustainable consumption in Asia. Very good. Thanks for these remarks. So let's go to Q&A. Okay, we do have some questions here coming from the audience, and feel free to write your questions in the chat. We could take it as we go. To Felipa, what guidelines are part of the process to become certified sustainable in the palm oil industry?
Sorry, just to clarify, what guidelines?
Yeah, what guidelines are part of the process to become sustainable certified in the palm oil industry?
Sure.
Yeah.
So there are a multitude of certifications within the sustainable palm oil industry, but the certification that WWF support and consider as a benchmark for the industry is the Roundtable of Sustainable Palm Oil certification. So there are a multitude of requirements in there which range from protection of forests, best use of best management practices in agriculture, labor rights, and so forth. I know we've got Kamal on the line who can probably share a link to the RSPO framework, which is very comprehensive indeed, which covers all the specific areas for the certification.
Very good. Thank you very much, Pipa. A question for Nis. Last year, the ILO Convention banning child labor has been signed by all its 187 member countries. Do you think this will push companies to source from certified producers?
I think I'm not necessarily sure if that's the case, because of course, I mean, many certification standards also go beyond just child labor as an issue, which I think we should expect from everyone, certified or not, I guess. So yeah, I think with many of the voluntary sustainability standards presented today, or that we need, I think, to drive more sustainable consumption, we need to also go much more beyond just this issue, for sure.
Yeah. Very good, very good. Thank you very much, Niels. A question to our Mr. Ivan and Mr. Teddy. Who is the type of consumer that purchases sustainable coffee in Indonesia? Who is the prototype of person, the profile who purchases sustainable coffee in Indonesia?
Okay, I'll try to answer first. So I think the market segment that already raised some awareness, expressed some awareness in sustainable coffee, it's leading more into specialty coffee product. Pak Teddy, please correct me if I'm wrong, because we have seen more and more specialty coffee roasters and specialty coffee shops, who are expressing their interest in some sustainable projects. For example, they gain more relations to the some cooperative of farmers, and also there are some initiatives who work with some projects which are absorbing and more water into the land. So and more initiatives are led by the specialty coffee shops and roasters. Please, you may add, Pak Teddy.
Yeah, I think what is you mentioned, Pak Irfan, I think is specialty coffee is more interactive to the people and attract the people to coming. Like for example, for me, we have also another, the traceability. The traceability, because the groom of the coffee is coming from the original. That's why it's the people know the origin. It means we have segregate our product and then more consume. And Indonesia is many. I think it's because Indonesia has many islands. At least 13 of province has a coffee. It means different province itself. Maybe we have different taste of the coffee, different, the how to treat the sustainability. I think this is maybe the most, or the attractive one for the consumer.
Yeah, Very good. Thank you very much for answering the question. We have a question also for Mrs. Toa in Vietnam. What are the early results of your education program and any change in behavior? Have you monitored that? Any reactions from the students?
Hi. Actually, we have the monitoring system on the platform of Funzi, and in our program we also have some interaction with a student, but we target also mainly with the private sectors as the outlet in Vietnam, and we involve them like a big supermarket, the outlet, the green shops to the project. So they give the support to the suppliers who comply with the VSS, and they will contribute to a very big big part in the consumer changing behavior. So I mean that the private sectors, the outlet, the wholesaler in Vietnam play a very important crucial role, and they are the person who promote the cost as well to the person who visit their shops.
Okay, excellent, very good. So the important role of the retailers on that effort. Thank you very much, Toa. We do have a questions. I think Mr. Ganesh and can answer, as well as Mr. Rajesh. How important are global brands and multinationals in relation to local demand for the cotton and tea sectors? Are consumers demanding more local products or those from global and multinational companies? So for the cotton and tea sector, is there any local demand for your trusty brand products and God's branded products, or stays a lot in the multinational level for the export market? Mr. Rajesh and Mr. Ganesh.
Yeah, thanks. If I may go first. So first of all, the trustee standard is, as of now, as I said, a wholesale trade focused standard. So it's for the wholesale buyers. It's moving to the retail domain very soon, maybe in the next 3 to 6 months, where consumers will see the seal on the pack and can connect directly to sustainability. But on the question of local products, as you know, tea in any way in India, 80 to 90% of the tea produced is consumed locally. So tea is a product which is actually people purchase what is grown in the country. But with 55% of the tea produced sustainably, so we are able to push the consumers and to support consumers who want a sustainable option, and that's where we're getting to the seal on the pack to give them that choice. So that's how we created the base, and now we'd like to reach out to the consumers and touch base with them for the sustainable option.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Ganesh?
Yeah, as far as the textile industry is concerned, if you look at the region of South Asia, India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, these are the manufacturing hubs, and the buyers hub on the other side, right, lies with the US market or the European market. And it's a good sign to know that there has been a tremendous rise from the consumer's perspective, and more consumers are demanding for high volume of sustainable products. As a result, honestly, at the moment, there is a big supply demand gap as far as the organic goods are concerned. And that goes on a very positive note, considering that the more sustainable demand, that means the more safe products to be launched in the market. As a result of this, we from God's perspective are also trying to promote more and more organic in conversion also, because any crop like cotton cannot be called as organic from the right first year of its production, manufacturing in the farms. There is a system whereby there is a in conversion 1, 2, and 3. Just to ensure that the farmers are also getting their due diligence for growing more and more organic stuff, and also to encourage more and more farming of the organic cotton, we are also encouraging the organic in conversion, which is very well accepted and by the international market. And all the international brands and retailers, you take off any names, they have set up their own sustainability program, and GOTS is one of their top agenda by the way they look for the sustainability or the sustainability life. Thank you.
Okay, Very good. Thank you very much, guys. Let's take the last question before going to Vidya again and the last round of recommendations from the speakers. So question to Niels. You mentioned about the importance of credibility, sustainability claims. What needs to happen to ensure consumers have credible information on sustainable information on the products?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I mean, that's something we work on, and I think we are seeing right now the limitations in terms of voluntary approaches, because we increasingly see the need that there needs a bit more of monitoring and maybe some regulation similar to, for example, what the marketing authorities do with terms of competitiveness between claims being made. So this needs to happen on sustainability, so that not everyone can claim that the product is sustainable when this is not the case, and this will help credible initiatives like we have seen presented today to demonstrate their value to the consumer much more and encourage more sustainable consumption choices.
Excellent, very good. Thank you very much, Niels. Vidya, back to you to the last round of recommendations from speakers.
Great. Thank you so much, Christina, for facilitating that and some great questions from the audience. We're out of time, but we don't want to let you and our panelists go before we come to them for their recommendations. So here's the million-dollar question. I'm going to come to each panelist and give you an opportunity to talk about your single top recommendation for what you think needs to be done to boost consumption of sustainable products in Asia, right? I'm going to start with the person who I think is just rapidly putting out recommendations and reports, and that's Philippa. Philippa, if you want to go first. Less than 30 seconds, everybody, and your top recommendation.
Thanks, Vidya. You only gave me one, so I was looking at my whole list, but I would probably say the need for greater transparency across the board of levels of uptake and consumption.
Brilliant. Great. Thank you. Nils, would you like to go?
Yeah, I'll just stick to my point about the credibility of the information. Thanks.
Great. Rajesh?
Yeah, I would say 2 T's, training and traceability. These are the 2 keys to that.
Great. Ganesh?
I would say the traceability and the transparency in the business is very much essential, and the awareness of the sustainability programs is also very important.
Great. You gave me 3, but we'll take it. Thank you. Irfan?
I think traceability is 1, and second is public awareness.
Great. Thank you. Teddy?
Sorry. Yeah, I think it's a traceability, and maybe have to keep, the producing. I mean, the farmers, especially in the coffee sector, we have to help them, especially because if you don't any coffee, it's hard. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. And Ms. Toa, please, your top recommendation.
Collaboration.
Yeah, that's a great one, and your example really sort of highlights that. Well, thank you all so much, firstly, for taking the time to join us for this discussion today and sharing your views and your experiences. A huge thank you to all of you in the audience who joined and stuck with us for our 90-minute webinar and session. We will have the recording and the sort of slides available, so please do look out for that both in IISD and Evidencia communications. And last but certainly not least, a huge thank you to the team from IISD who've led on this webinar from the front. It's been a pleasure to collaborate with you all, and to those who you don't see here but who've played a vital part, David, Sally, and Christina's team. Christina, if you want to say a few last words.
Thank you very much, Vidya. Thank you all to all the speakers for being with us today and presented your amazing work on boosting sustainable consumption in Asia. Thanks the audience for the very good questions that you put forward, and pleasure, Vidya, collaborating with you and partnering with you to discuss this important topic. And please, with all your recommendations, I think we have a lot of work to do and to continue doing all of us and much more organizations that are working in this topic to boost sustainable consumption and production in Asia and other parts of the world. So let's just stay connected and stay tuned for upcoming reports of a number of organizations, WWF, Evidencia, ourselves, and news from all the institutions that participated here. And we'll be in touch sharing recording and material regarding the webinar. And please, let's keep in touch. And thank you all for this wonderful webinar and discussion.
Thank you,
everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank
Thanks
you,
for having us.
everyone.
Thank
Have a
you.
nice time.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Thank you.